rich, so deep. The acting, the filming, the way it was shot,
Okay.
to me, all those things stood out. And I'm not sure if it's just the nostalgia factor, and I don't think so. I mean, Stuart Gordon's a great director.
Yeah.
We don't talk about who the director is and stuff. We just talk about the story and how it made us feel.
Right.
But with this, a lot of times movies seem cheaper now. Does that make sense? Am I talking abstract?
I'm not sure.
Does that make any sense?
Because, I mean, there has been some...
I'm not saying they don't make good movies.
Because, a lot of them from that time period, I think we're missing all those things you're talking about. And, there's been some more current ones that are trying to hit those points. They're maybe missing it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I don't know. Just little touches to this. The girl that, and you gave me her name earlier, Jessica Dollarhide, I guess, was... And at first, I didn't even know if she was blind or not. I mean, I knew she was blind in the movie. She's playing a blind character. I didn't know that she was or whether she was. It was that convincing that she was playing a blind person.
Okay. And now, do we want to say briefly that, how much of the story do you want to talk about? Because I said in the synopsis, we've got, I've forgotten his name already.
John,
his name was John.
Jeffrey Combs. John.
Usually, I know it's Jeff. I was going to call him Jeffrey, and that's not his name in the movie. So we've got John and his wife. Usually I write their names down, and I didn't. I was really, I was kind of involved. I got a little more involved.
That's it. That's what I mean.
I didn't want to keep looking down, I guess.
How this was a throwaway entertainment type movie or whatever.
Right.
I was engrossed in it.
And it started out a little corny, which here's where I was going to say, with these movies, you expect a little bit of that, a little bit of, plot holes or a little bit of glazing over stuff.
Right.
But the things that I wanted more of, I got later.
Okay.
Because it's there we have Jeffrey Combs' character and his wife and their blind teenage daughter. He inherited a castle in Italy. So here's these three Americans. They're going to just come in and stay. And it just seemed so, they're just here we are. Where's our room? And I was they're going to live here? What? They just dropped their lives and they're just going to come live in a castle in Italy now?
Yeah.
There were so many things I was not understanding. But, we find that he's just there to liquidate everything and sell everything.
Right.
He still is not quite sure how he inherited this thing, but it was an aunt or he was the last family member.
Right.
Whatever. So, I mean, it did touch on the family and all of this and that. So that was okay. And right away you find out that he and his wife have a very strained relationship. Something really bad happened.
You don't know what initially.
And it's pretty bad. And so they're dealing with a situation where she can't forgive him.
Right.
And it's probably not what you think.
No. And I appreciated that.
And so the movie touched on a lot of, I think, things that could be painful for people.
Okay.
Alcoholism and, accidents that you can't forget, even though it was
an accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They still caused it and then to go a little further as far as, I don't know how much we want to talk about the freak himself, but I read some reviews where someone said they had a really hard time, with the freak's situation.
Mm-hmm.
Is it spoiling it if we talk about... Because when we're very first introduced to him...
I don't know. I guess I would say anybody that hasn't seen it...
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to ruin it for him. Because that
was really... I mean, it is pretty heavy. It's a heavy topic.
Yeah, and it's
things
done...
things like this really happen.
Right.
And people have no idea what I'm talking about. But I'll just say that, abuse and neglect and, grudges and...
Okay.
Somebody on there who wrote a review, couldn't get... I mean, it really deeply affected him. I mean, it's supposed to be a horror movie. It's supposed to be kind of...
And I'm laughing. This is terrible.
Yeah.
Because...
Maybe they had some kind of abuse in their life, and like
they struck a nerve.
That hit him really hard, and they were like, that was really hard for me to watch.
Okay,
I hate to think of somebody actually in real life experiencing some of the things that I hate to call him the freak.
Yeah.
You know, this poor soul.
Yeah.
It's horrible to think of that happening in reality, but
that's true.
So this movie, anyway, my point is, you know, the movie hit some really hard real life topics,
and without that comedy element to lighten it up,
right?
That might have been. Now I feel guilty.
See, now that would have been inappropriate.
Yeah. Well, and now I feel guilty for laughing about it and saying how comfortable I felt watching this movie. But I didn't suffer those things. It didn't affect me in that way. So I understand and respect
That's the great thing about movies and stories. They're all personal.
Yeah. And what you take out of it, what you get. So
yeah.
It's too bad that affected them that way.
Yeah. They still enjoyed the movie.
Oh, okay.
But they were like, that was really difficult to watch.
Well, you know what? The best thing I can liken it to is... Oh, this is going to sound terrible. Maybe it sounds cheap and callous then to say that. It sounds so weird without going into the whole thing about
it. It's getting worse the more you talk about it.
The more I talk about it. I'm just going to say... So my problem with Hellboy 2, for anybody that's seen Hellboy 2...
Yeah.
Was like I identified with the elves more than I identified with the humans in that movie.
Okay.
So I had a hard time... Though I liked Hellboy 2, I enjoyed it and stuff.
Yeah.
I saw the other side of it,
right.
And so it was hard for me to get on board and go, yay, go, and it's... I know
what you're talking about.
Okay, I know you do. Well, I don't know if I'm making sense to anybody else.
There's an awful lot of stories and movies and things that deal with, you know, like a us or them kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, humans trying to, like... You know, aliens are coming, they're going to take our planet, whatever. A lot of times I'm thinking, well, they're bigger than us, they're smarter than us, they have way more awesome equipment and guns and all this technology, whatever. Maybe the time of humans is over. It's like, terrible. I would be terrible and, like, you know...
You're terrible.
Earth is in trouble. All the humans have to come together and we need to defend Earth. It's like, well, yeah.
Nice. Nice.
You can tell I don't have children or anything.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not making you head of diplomacy for anything. Yeah, you could just take this stuff. You're bigger anyhow.
I don't know.
Whatever. I get it, but I mean, that's a certain amount of empathy.
I guess it depends.
Sure, and this is what we're talking about, empathy. And we're supposed to be talking about Castle Freak.
Why are we talking about this
I don't know. Yeah,
because then another thing that I might talk about in the real near future here is the Ender's Game. I guess it's called the Ender's Saga.
Mm-hmm.
And like in that case... There's these different species and stuff, and they're endangered. Like in that story, I'm like, man, just nuke them all. Who cares? So, I mean, every story is very different. You got, you know.
Okay.
How does this relate to Castle
I'm not
Freak?
sure. Let's get back on track here.
All right. That sounded terrible.
You saw there's like one specific scene in there that you saw, that you caught it before I did. And it was him running through a shrouded room, you know what I mean? Because a lot of these antiques and things have been covered and stuff that. And
it's the oldest trick in the book, and it's a classic.
Didn't get it, and it got me. It wasn't a jump scare for me or whatever, but I thought, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that so much.
Oh, awesome!
I mean, it startled me, or I was supposed to be.
Anytime it's almost like, well. It's because it could have been a number of things. Objects.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of a classic horror movie thing. You're walking through an old house. Every piece of furniture has a white sheet thrown over it.
Right.
So it's like, oh God, where's the killer? Or where's the monster? It's going to be under one of these sheets.
You walk into a room full of clowns, 100 different clowns. Which one's the real one?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So something looked a bit odd about that one thing, and
I was completely focused on on Jeffrey Combs' character.
Yeah.
And so it's like, bah! No. Okay.
That's good.
Anyhow, but, however, having said there was no comedy in this, there's a certain part that has to do with the wardrobe, and all I could think about with the wardrobe was Faulty Towers.
Oh, I was thinking of Narnia.
Oh, nice. Okay. So we added our own humor to this, I guess.
I guess.
But I don't know. So anyhow, for the movie, what would you give it on a 1 to 5?
I want to give it a strong 4.
Okay.
There were some things in it I didn't like because I'm not a gore person. And
I saw some things that I didn't need to see.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it at that.
And because the freak starts out as like a sympathetic character, like I had mixed.
I got you.
Like I don't know. There were some issues there for me. Which it's not the movie's fault or the freak's fault.
Right.
Does he have a name? I guess you do finally find out what his name is. Guess we'll just keep calling him Freak. But the monster.
Yeah.
It's because it's definitely what makes a monster. It kind of reminded me of like a Frankenstein's monster kind of thing.
Right.
I guess I wanted him to be more... I don't know why he'd have any humanity at all, actually.
Gotcha.
But so, yeah, there were just some things, like I said, it's not the movie's fault or anybody else's fault. It's just my personal feelings, I guess.
I put all those things aside.
Yeah.
I gave it a solid 4. I give it a solid 4.
Okay. I'm probably like a 3.5.
Okay.
I'm probably a little under a 4.
Okay. And I strictly watched it on the entertainment value and stuff. Now that you've brought up other things, I have other things to think about when I see it or the next time I see it or whatever. There was so much nostalgia, though. It was everything that I didn't get.
Yeah.
It's everything that I didn't get last episode.
Okay.
Last movie, It Comes at Night. When I said, going back to having a sucky week at work or whatever. Which, of course,
you loved. And
I loved it. I absolutely loved it, but it wasn't what I was ready for. So switching these around... This was what I wanted when I came home from whenever it was that we sat down to watch it. This would have been like the perfect thing, the perfect warm bath to slip into.
Okay. In spite of all the heavy topics.
In spite of the heavy topics and stuff, yeah.
Well, now let's just, I'm going to touch on this because I did read, obviously I read reviews because I talked about the other, the man who was just really disturbed about the, some of the opening, some of the early stuff it shows. Okay. Some people, actually quite a few people, thought the movie was just total crap and bad acting and bad B movie and full on.
I guess I could understand and see that, but for me, it wasn't, and that's why I said maybe it's not fair because there's nostalgia, and I just slid right in.
There's a lot of nostalgia, for sure, with the actors and. Is our house filling up with smoke?
I don't know. Anyhow, back on track here.
That's lovely. I love neighbors. Neighbors are so awesome. They wait for these nice warm nights when you have your windows open and then they stoke up their fireplace and smoke you out. It's so awesome. Okay, now this, it was definitely rated R. We talked about that. Gore, nudity. Mm-hmm. Very awkward wine cellar scene. That was a very awkward wine cellar scene. We'll just leave it at that. We'll let everyone out there discover that one on their own. Yeah, there was some crazy, This is a hard R. Did we say it was an R movie? And I would call it arguably a hard R. Oh, it's R for a reason.
As opposed to last week's episode, which was an R for language and maybe a little violence. But this was back in the early, mid-90s, 95, whatever.
Right.
So anyhow, a hard R.
I noted that I went into it knowing people griped about the acting. Mm-hmm. I didn't think the acting was bad. And I wrote that whether the acting was bad or not, I wrote the emotion seemed real enough.
Yeah. That's what I got out of it too. Even if it seemed a little corny here and there,
right.
I was still buying everything they were selling.